Hi and welcome back. Hi and welcome back to another AnyRPG Development Livestream. Hi and welcome back to another AnyRPG Development Livestream. In these videos, I livestream the development of the AnyRPG Engine, a 100% free and open source role-playing game engine designed in Unity and written in C#. These videos are unscripted and give you a chance to take a behind-the-scenes look at the unfiltered, methodical side of software development. For more information on AnyRPG, be sure to check out AnyRPG.org, where you can find documentation on the engine, links to the full source code at the official GitHub repository, and downloadable versions of the AnyRPG engine in Unity package format, as well as free games designed to showcase the features of the AnyRPG engine. If you like this type of content and you'd like to see more of it in the future, then be sure to subscribe to the Cohesion YouTube channel, thumbs up the videos, or just leave a note in the comments letting me know what you'd like to see. In this episode, we'll be continuing our work on the multi-phase boss AI. At the end of the last episode, I discovered some issues that were due to ordering, and I actually went off and spent like about 5 hours refactoring all the code and pretty much removing everything from start and awake methods and just having everything orchestrated rather than sort of taking my chances on it. It seems to all be working now, and there are just a few small issues left over with the multi-phase boss AI. So one of the issues, and let's just load up the code here. So that was the combat strategy. One of the issues with the combat strategy is that when we end the fight, or not when we end the fight, basically if we're fighting more than one mob and one mob has music and the other one doesn't, and we kill the mob that doesn't have music first, he'll actually shut off the music for the mob that does have music. So we need to change that, and that is done in the AI controller, I believe. We have something here called reset combat, and I have a note here that we need to fix the music stuff here. So what we want to do is basically we want to check. We'll just make something called like has music. So let's see, my combat strategy. If my combat strategy dot has music equals false, then no, actually we're not going to return. We do want to reset the combat strategy, so in fact we'll change that to if my combat strategy that has music equals true. Then we want to do all of this stuff right here, and that's good. The get combat strategy is basically you want to reset your object so that the mob can once again detect the phases properly. So that's what we're doing at the end here. And let's see, if my combat strategy has music equals true. So we need to now make that function. So we'll go into the combat strategy and we'll add a new function, public bool has music. And then basically we will loop through all the nodes. So let's just do that. At the very end, we are going to return false if we didn't find anything. So for each combat strategy node, phase node, in phase nodes, if the phase node dot my music profile name does not equal null, and phase node dot my music profile name does not equal string dot empty, then we want to return true. Okay, we just don't care. The first music we find, we're going to return true. So if we have music, then we're going to be resetting the music and playing the scene music. So that looks good, and I think that will solve the first issue here. Okay, no errors, so let's just go in and test that in the game. So we go to our alpha load game manager here, hit play, and to load that up we just got to load someone who's down in Crystal Mine, because we have to basically create a really specific scenario here. Let's see, I think I have the volume on the wrong thing. Okay, good, now I can hear that. And how's the audio? It's pretty loud on my side, but I don't see it at all on the stream here. Okay, so let me just check my settings here and see ambient music. Okay, there we go. Looks like you should be able to hear the music now. Okay, alright, so what we're going to do here is we are going to fight the boss. We're going to grab a golem, fight the golem at the same time as the boss, kill the golem in the middle of the boss fight, and then if the music doesn't change back to the zone music, we're good. So let's do that. Oh man, that guy demolished me. Alright, cool. And we go back to the zone music as soon as the battle ends. Perfect. Let's try that again, except for with me actually killing him. And let him attack us. Keep him chained though. That's cool. Music is back to the zone music. Perfect. So that part is working now. The music is going awesome, and it works properly in all cases. It works when he runs back and returns. It works when we've got the golems with us. It works all the time. So the next issue, sorry, apparently there's like a buffering issue with YouTube right now. apologize for that. So let's just turn this effect off here, and we have one more issue to solve here. So when we added the combat strategy into the AI controller, no, into the attack state, yes. Okay, when we added the combat strategy into the attack state, we commented this code out because there was a bug where it was leading to the rock golems automatically attacking the unit. But that led to a case where anyone who doesn't have a combat strategy just couldn't perform any attacks at all. So to fix that, actually let's just see if I can just demonstrate that real quickly. We'll load up the alpha load game manager again. And while we're doing that, we'll load up GIMP because I took a screenshot while we were in the dungeon there that I think was pretty awesome. So let's go to play. We're going to load game, and I think this time we're going to load up Wolf Speed because I think he's over somewhere where we can demonstrate this. Yeah, okay, so let's see. Oops. There. If we run over to the wolf, or I mean to the mouse goblin battle. Oh no, you know what? Huh. Okay. We have like some different kind of bug actually, it looks like. Right. Of course, they're just doing auto attacks. Yeah, so that's this proves exactly what I was trying to say. That essentially we've bugged it now so that the goblins can't shoot their arrows because the arrows are part of like an ability, and so they're just basically defaulting to auto attacks. So interestingly enough, I see that the goblins don't have the bows on their back either, which is interesting. So what we want to do then is we're going to fix that. And let's see. Oh yeah, that's cool. All right. So first, this actually becomes an else. So if your combat strategy does not equal null, then you're going to do all that stuff right here, which will allow you to basically, like any abilities you know, you're just going to go through them like completely sort of in a dumb mode and use them. And that hopefully allows us to have our mobs that don't have combat strategies attached to them successfully using their abilities. So let's just jump back into wolf speed here. And just go check out if that actually worked or not. Okay, that's really interesting. So they're doing the animations now, but they're running over into melee range. And I think that probably has something to do not with attack state, but with follow state, likely. So let me just go over to follow state. Yeah, so we've got this same code right here. So right now we've got an issue. Basically, we have duplicated code, kind of. No, actually, you know what? This code, although it is kind of the same. It actually is technically different, because in attack state, we tell it to begin the ability rather than changing states. So I think we need like a basic, a sort of basic method that's going to deliver us a true or false value of was able to get valid attack. And it has to work without a combat strategy. So yeah, so let's put this as a common code block in the AI controller. So either that or AI combat. No, you know what? AI controller, because it has to. Yeah, AI controller for now. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just copy all of this code right here, and in the AI controller, we want to create a new bool. So public bool has let's see, has valid attack, can get valid attack. We can rename that later, but that's pretty accurate to what we want to do. So we'll take that out right here, and we're already in the AI controller, so basically just my combat strategy. We're already in the AI controller, so my combat strategy, same thing there, and same thing there. We're not going to change the state, we're just going to return true. And then this is where we want that else statement to prevent this code from allowing units who do have a combat strategy to cast moves from a phase that they're not in. So we're going to remove that, change that, return true, and at the very end, if we make it to here, we're just going to return false. Okay, good. So that gives us a nice common block of code. Yeah, actually, attempt to get a valid ability from combat strategy before defaulting to random attacks. Okay, and basically get random attack if no strategy exists. Okay, so that's good. We now have that common block of code there. And so what we want to do now is go back to our follow state, and we'll change this to if can AI controller dot can get valid attack, then AI controller dot change state new attack state. much cleaner and better. Okay, so that should allow our mobs to come out of follow state into attack state properly if they don't have a combat strategy. And then the rest of this stuff is like, evade is just commented out right now. I'm probably going to put it back in at some point in the future, but for now we don't really need that. So then, since follow state should now be okay, I want to see idle state. I think idle state is fine actually. If we go to, let's see, return state, go to iState, go to implementation, and just look at idle state. Okay, good. Yeah, so essentially, if we're in idle, we go straight into follow state. Follow state has the proper code, which will instantly put us into attack state if we go to valid attack and we're in range. So then we can go back to our attack state. And to be totally honest, I want this code to also exist up in the AI controller. Yeah. And in fact, basically this code is the exact same as the other code. Yeah, so we don't actually need to. There's a much more actually efficient way we can do this. Yes, okay. I think we can do this with a single function. Let's just look here. So if can get valid attack, and we're going to have by default a bool begin attack, and it's going to be false by default. And then that will allow us to, let's see, let's go back to our attack state here and just grab this code. So if we set that to true, we're just gonna begin the ability before we return true. And otherwise, we're just going to do exactly what we did down here. Same thing, begin ability before we return true. Okay, that's better. So now we have this nice, neat, clean, single block of code that we can call from anywhere, so we don't have to worry about this whole like update to files every time we make a change to our combat strategy. And that's a lot more consistent. So then in this case, basically all we're going to do is we're just going to say if AI controller dot can get valid attack, send in true, so that it'll auto begin it, and then basically we're just going to go return right here, and that gets rid of all that code. Very good. Now the state looks a lot cleaner, and we can share that behavior among everything. So I'm quite happy with that. I think it'll work. We've still got one more issue, being the goblins don't appear to actually be equipping their bows, but let's first just go take a look and make sure that the code that we just wrote solves the first stage of the issue, which was them running over to us because they were unable to get out of follow state when they were in a perfectly valid attack range. So we'll start up the game. We'll press play, we'll load up the game, we will go down to wolf speed again, hit load, turn on our wolf wolf speed and head over. Squeakalot has colliders on him, so I can't run through him. Okay. No. Interestingly enough, he sort of slid over the ground towards me. That was really super odd. Okay. Let's just save him over here because we have to go figure out what happened there. So we're going to jump out of the game and let's see. He got into follow state. So let's go check that for a second. Alright, he jumped from idle state, he got a target, he jumped into follow state. Control AKF, just fix the formatting really quickly on that. Okay. If AI controller.can get valid attack, then change state new attack state. Oh, right, and then return. Of course. Because then he's otherwise it's going to do this hitbox stuff right there. Okay, that's a lot better. Maybe that'll solve it. Okay, so we're going to load up the game again. We're going to run over to a goblin. Okay, good. Yep. I am happy with that. Yeah. Okay, good. So, that's fixed. These guys who do not have a combat strategy will by default do exactly what they're supposed to be doing. There's a little bit of an issue I noticed though first, and that was that he wasn't spinning towards us properly. So we ask him to change state to attack state. So let's go back to our attack state here for a second. We ask him to face the target, and then we allow him to attack. Interesting. There seems to be a bit of lag there. I guess it's not too big of an issue. I'm not really going to worry about it too much right now. So we have one more issue, and that is the goblins are not actually equipping their bows. They are getting the attacks from them. So let's see if we can go figure out what's happening there. So the goblins, I have a feeling this is just like another one of those ordering issue things from the orchestrator refactoring. So let's just check that out. This is not a state issue, so we can close down pretty much all the state stuff here. And even the combat strategies are okay now. What we really want is let's see. It would be the equipment manager, which is responsible for equipping the equipment. So let's go look in there. Actually, you know what? Let's just start at the Goblin Ranger unit. So we'll just go take a look at this guy right here. So basically, we have an AI equipment manager, which has the equipment profile name Goblin Ranger. So let's go take a look at our AI equipment manager, and let's look then at our let's see, player unit object equals game object. This might be the problem right here. We run some code in Awake, and very likely, let's go to the definition of that. There is some stuff going on here, getting component references and creating event subscriptions that needs to be handled through the orchestrator. So this is probably just a case of I forgot to do stuff in that way. So hopefully simple fix. This needs to be protected, override, void. Was that base one a public one? Create component references. Okay. Oh, because it's public. Of course. Create component references. Okay. So we run the base, and then we do this stuff right here instead. And we never run Awake, because the equipment manager has no business running anything in Awake or Start. It needs to be orchestrated. And then that way we've got a player unit object, and I have a feeling that stuff was failing just because it couldn't get the player unit object. Before I go writing a whole pile of debug statements, we're just going to jump back into the game to see if that was an easy fix or not. Like, regardless, the code in the awake method needed to go away. So even if this doesn't fix it, that was still a necessary change anyway. So let's load into the okay, right on. Let's see what happened here now. Okay, so our character animator, let's just see, look at our stack and see when this happens. So we instantiate the mob, and the AI character goes into Awake, runs its orchestrator start method, which attempts to load the default equipment, handle the weapon slot, and then initialize the animator. Likely, our animator let's just go look at initialize animator, because that's very likely where the problem is. If we look at initialize animator, it is called from orchestrator start, and it should have gotten its component references. I don't like the idea of things running in the awake method, because this will prevent us from rerunning this code a second time. So let's get rid of that because we want this orchestrated. Let's not go with awake methods. Okay, and let's see, orchestrator start. Did we see that in there? No. We just jumped straight to initialize animator. Let's see how we called that. So basically, the equipment manager has no business initializing the animator. The animator should have been initialized by whatever orchestrated the equipment manager. So let's just confirm that. Okay, so basically, this is a difference between the way that the character and the AI are handled. Before we do the equipment manager thing on an AI unit, we want to make sure that the animator has been initialized. So to do that, first, let's get rid of that code that initializes the animator in the equipment manager. I think this code here, I think I wrote it before I did orchestration, and I wanted to use that to make sure that we actually had a reference to the character animator, but this should all be done through orchestration now. So let's see, what can we do about that? We can can take the character animator perform equipment change here. We can move it up to there. And then allow it to happen. But this means we need the animator to have been initialized first. So let's go back to our base character where we perform the orchestrator start. So we have the reference to an animated unit in get component references. So I think what we want to do actually is we want to go up to the AI character, because in the AI character, before we run orchestrator start, we can initialize the animated unit. And then initialization of the animated unit should deal with the initialization of the character. In the player character case, there will be no unit spawned yet at this point, so that should be okay. Let's find all references and see. Here we go. So we're running our orchestrator start, which will call our get component references. And I feel like the character unit, all we need to do is just run its orchestrator startup quicker. Let's go to the definition of the character unit, and yeah, there we go. Or our orchestrator start here basically runs the animated unit's orchestrator startup, so that should result hopefully in things running in the right order. Let's check if that works. Oops, console clear. Couple issues there. First, this awake does nothing, and our base awake no longer exists. So get rid of that. This start does nothing, our base start no longer exists. Get rid of that. Basically, these were like all for debugging. I just wanted to be able to see messages on the player model without having all the spam from the NPC base versions of these. So that should be okay. Good, and let's try that out. Load the game, jump into wolf speed. Okay. And we have our bows. And let's just see, do I see the arrow flying through the air? Cool, yeah, there's an arrow. All right, awesome. So it looks like that's fixed. Now, interesting thing here, he doesn't have an arrow in his hand. But guess what we have the ability to do now? We have the ability to have 2 prefabs per animated ability. So that animated ability was called Shoot Bow. The holdable object name was example bow. What if we added a second holdable object called, wait a minute, why is shoot bow holding an example bow? That's awfully interesting. That should only be example shoot bow that's holding an example bow. Okay, and let's just go back up, because the example bow is not the good looking one, yet the goblin actually has, you know, the goblin might actually have his own shoot bow ability. Let's just go look at the goblin ranger unit just to see what ability he's actually learning there. That comes from his equipment profile, which is where? There, equipment profile, AI, Goblin Ranger gets the equipment name list, Goblin Ranger bow. So, going into the AI weapons, we see the Goblin Ranger bow. Huh. And he gets shoot bow. I think maybe the holdable object here, I think I might have forgotten to rename that. Let's just go check that out. We should have a holdable object under AI. No, it's called Goblin Ranger bow. What in the world? How is that even working? He should not even be able to equip it then. Okay. So, oh wait, Goblin Ranger equips Goblin Ranger bow. Yeah, actually, so that's fine. Oh, I think I see what's happening here. That setting is kind of useless and won't work. Right, so let's go back to that base ability and just look at that for a second. So basically there is no holdable object name, because he's already holding the bow at all times. So actually it's just the example, or not the example arrow, the arrow that we need to add to it. And I'm just going to call this the goblin arrow. So then what we need to do is we just need to make a holdable object for the goblin arrow that will only be active while the animated ability is active. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So let's do that. We need to go and create an AI holdable object, and I'm just going to call it goblin arrow, create, just duplicate one of these existing ones here. Actually, I guess we can call it Goblin Ranger arrow just to be consistent. So this will be the Goblin Ranger arrow, and it doesn't have a sheathed position because it never sheathes, so we don't need any of that. In this case on the Goblin, it's going to be in his right hand with one T. Okay, good. And then we'll need to set its rotation and such, but I can do that in the actual game. So first we just need to go into here, and we're going to use the AnyRPG arrow as the prefab. That should be good, so now we just need to go back to the shoot bow and change that to Goblin Ranger arrow. Okay, and now the Goblin should actually pull out an arrow and put it in his hand while he's shooting the bow, hopefully. So let's save that, and we'll just see if that works. So load up the game, jump onto wolf speed, run over to one of the goblins, and I don't see an arrow in his hand. Okay, so this may be due to the fact that our holdable objects may only be spawned on a regular cast, not necessarily on an animated ability. Let's just go confirm that. So if we go down to base ability and go to definition, and if we look at our holdable object names and find all references to it, let's see, this gets cast on perform ability cast. So our animated abilities are a little bit different. So let's see what we want to do about that. So for the animated abilities, where do we start those? Let's jump up the chain, finding all references to that. So we might actually be despawning these things. We might actually be creating them and despawning them. If you look at ability.startCasting, object abilities and channeled abilities. Let's go take a look at our animated abilities and see how we're casting those. Their animated ability. So we run that through cast, basically. Okay. So let's find all references to that. And animated abilities are straight off of base abilities. Okay. And this is done from perform ability. And if we travel back up and find out who calls perform ability, it's called from can simultaneous cast and can cast. Okay. So let's see. Basically, because there's no cast time for animated abilities, we probably spawn the ability object and then immediately despawn it, because we'll just jump straight to the end of this loop here. Then we actually perform the ability itself, which is our animated ability right here. And so what we actually need to do, I think, is move this code down a little bit. So realistically, let's see, we've been using these ability objects for eating and for crafting. We haven't been using them for animated abilities yet, which is kind of interesting. Let's comment this out right here, because we need to change our logic for despawning these ability objects in order for the goblin to be able to hold his arrows in his hand during an animated ability. So to do that, can cast will result in this being run, pretty much guaranteed. If we can't cast did this in the first place. So that's okay. We don't have to worry about despawning them otherwise. Okay. And that means that in performability, we want to go to the definition here. And right here in cast, if we returned out, we would want to, let's see, make a note here, get rid of casting prefabs here. Otherwise, we would want to get rid of them in the cast method, basically. So for an animated ability, we don't really want to get rid of the casting prefab. Until basically it ends. So let's go to the System Ability Manager, go to Definition of Cast, and this is the base ability. And so in the base ability, before we return, this is where we want to create a function, and it will be a virtual, public virtual void let's see, handle ability, prefabs, I don't know, let's call it just process ability prefabs. And that's where we want this code here. And this has to actually come from the source, so base character source character. And then what do we want to do here? Basically swap that out for source character. Good. And we are then going to run this call right here, process ability prefabs, with source character. Okay, now in the animated ability, which is the only type of ability where we don't want to do this, we are going to override process ability prefabs and literally just do nothing. So, animated ability, public override void, process ability prefabs, do nothing intentionally. We will clean these up at the end of the ability. Okay. Next, we want to actually clean them up at the end of the ability. So when we begin an animated ability, let's see where we do that. Basically, it it's this handle ability hit that performs it. So let's go to definition and see handle ability hit, which does perform ability effects. But that's actually not what we want, because there could be multiple hits, and you sort of want this prefab to exist for the entire time. So we don't want to do it there. When we go to handle ability in our character animator, I think this is actually where we do something interesting here. It's right here. It's this wait for animation. At the end of this wait for animation loop, let's just go to the definition of that. We clear animated attack. And let's go to the definition of that. So basically, I think this, let's find all references to that. So we clear the animated attack at the end of this, and I think we also clear it when we clear animation blockers, which is what happens at the end of a stop casting, which is what happens on movement or whenever casting gets cleared. So this is definitely it. This clear animated attacks basically clears everything that we need to clear. Whoops. So this is the only other place theoretically where we should have to actually remove those prefabs. So where did we put that code? Right here. We put it in processability prefabs. So all we should need to do is just pop that in right here. I know the animator might seem like a little bit of a weird place for it, but let's see, character, animator. We actually need a base character. Wait. You know what? No, we have the base ability, but if we just call the base ability, that won't have a reference to a character. Okay, never mind. So we need a reference to a character. So do we have a base character? Who do we have in here? I think we have like an iCharacter unit reference or something. Character animator, character unit. Okay, so we're gonna have to follow the character unit back. So if our character unit dot my character does not equal null, alright, then we do that. So this should be it. This is the only place where we go ahead and clean up an animated attack, and it happens either on successful attack or on unsuccessful attack. So it's our common clear method. So I think now we actually maybe have everything that we need. Nobody else other than animated ability will override the base ability, therefore clearing the objects. So let's try it out. So press play, load game, wolf speed load. Let's turn on his wolf speed and go take a run over to this goblin here. I am this means now it's time to start writing some debug messages, because I think we've done everything we can. If I do arrow, I just get bundle of arrows. And this is an arrow from a drop down of the UI element. Okay. So let's just go back and confirm that our Goblin Ranger bow has a shoot bow animated ability. The shoot bow animated ability has one holdable object, the Goblin Ranger arrow. If we look at the Goblin Ranger arrow, it has a physical prefab. I'm just going to reset all of this stuff, and it should go in the Goblin's right hand. So I guess let's check first if we're even spawning it. So we'll go into the base ability code here. And we'll just see if this is being run at all actually. So debug.log base ability, and actually we'll just give it a name because I think our base ability even has a my name. Yeah, my name dot base ability dot process ability prefabs, and let's just make sure that the animated ability is going to tell us that, and this is animated ability. Okay, and let's save that, and let's see what else. I guess I want to see if we actually spawn these. So we can go down. Let's see, where's that going to be found? I think it's right here. Perform ability. Back that up a little bit to right here. Okay. So, gonna try to spawn the ability objects. So this is in game object dot name plus dot character ability manager dot perform ability cast. Oh, just a second. No, you know what? This should still be running. Perform ability cast, and we're gonna see here. Let's see, spawn ability objects. Okay. So let's just try that out. And let's load up our goblins here and watch our log messages and see if we can figure out what's going on with their ability objects. Okay. We are calling that. interestingly enough, we are not calling the other stuff. So let's just see our stack here and figure out where that happened. So we have performability. Move next. Right? And if we go back further up our stack, we have begin ability. Which causes begin ability common. Okay, so begin ability common does start coroutine performability cast. Okay, good. So we actually got to here. There. Here's the problem right there. This essentially makes the assumption that we only want ability objects spawned if we're doing long casts, which is no longer true. It used to be the case, but not anymore. So that check is entirely unnecessary. If we save that and hop back into the game, let's check now if our goblins can actually hold the arrows. So load game, go down to wolf speed, load him up, turn on his wolf speed, and let's take a look at our goblin here. Ooh, what's that? I see an arrow in his hand. Cool. Let's go into our scene and find our player unit. Hit F to focus. Grab this particular goblin right here. Good. And now let's fix his arrow positioning. So this goblin is going to have an arrow in his hands off his spine, and we have it in his right hand. There, arrow. Okay. So the arrow is like pointing off in a weird direction. So we're going to fix that. We're going to pop on our showReal Euler angles script, and then let's see, hit E to rotate this thing. I want it on its local axis. And actually from where it is right now, I think I just rotated it the wrong way. We want this actually exactly 180 degrees from there. Hit W to move it. We're going to move it up. Okay, he's going to have it like in the middle of his fist. So maybe like a little bit out more like that. Oh man, that's so awesome. It's like perfect. Okay. That's good. And when you're holding the arrow, let me just think. When I'm holding an arrow, it's actually been a while since I've held a bow here. Yeah, his hands are about right. We have it going about 2 inches in past the finger there. So that's pretty much actually exactly the right spot right there. It'd be like maybe a little, yeah, okay, good. So it's sort of out of in front of his chest. And let's see, so for the top of the arrow, we want it kind of hanging off the top of the bow, just like slightly up. So let's see, we're going to rotate it maybe that way, and then move it like up like that, so it looks like it's sitting on the bow. So that's good. It's basically hanging like right above his hand there, and then we just rotate a little more outwards. Let's see if I can find the right axis here. I think I want to go global this time. Perfect. And there, like a little bit out. Just wow. There. Okay. And maybe like a tiny bit up, like that. Perfect. Okay, good. We're gonna pause and unpause real quick here, just so our Euler angles update. I am super happy with that. So what we can do now is just copy those over. So we're going to lock the inspector here. We're going to add a tab. It's going to be a new inspector window. And we're going to call it look for the Goblin Ranger arrow. And then we're going to copy the position to the physical position slot. Right there. And copy the Euler angles to the physical rotation slot. Right there. Okay, and unpause it. It's like, the arrow's kind of jumping around there. Interesting. Okay, let's jump out of the game here for a second and let's just save that. I may need to actually sheath the arrow to his actual wrist itself. So let's press play. Or I'm not sheath the arrow, but parent the arrow. Load the game. Jump into wolf speed. And let's go take a look at this a little more. Okay, yeah, that's working. Perfect. Oh, I know what was happening before. Basically, what was happening before was okay, I see. So what was happening before was every time he reset it, the arrow would get created with a new prefab with the original settings, which is why it was jumping around there. Now this isn't totally perfect because what happens here is you see like the arrow isn't disappearing from his hands. And there's actually a really easy way that we can handle this. We already have animation prefabs. We already have animations. We want to make some animation events because this just seems like a really, really easy way to deal with this. So let's see here. We can do this pretty much using the same sort of methodologies that we've been using so far. So how are we going to do that? Okay, got it. We are going to go to the animation. So shoot bow, example shoot bow and arrow. Press X so that we can get back here into the animation tab where we need to be. Close the extra inspector window. And now let's look at the animation and open up our events. So right about here is where we grab the arrow. I know it's going to be on a little bit of a wacky angle, but I am going to call this event animation prefab create. And then he's going to pull it back and tink, let go right there. You know what, actually, like that last event where we actually do the hit, or like let the arrow fly, we can pretty much just like put it right on top of that. We're going to have that called animation prefab destroy. Okay, I'm good with that. File, save, and apply. Okay, so now we need to be able to respond to those events. So to do that, we actually have character animation event receiver. So let's, where's that character animation event receiver? All right, and so we need to create a couple more of them. Public void animation prefab create, public void animation prefab destroy. Okay. Let's see. We have this animation hit animation event, which is where we're making our sounds. And let me just go look at the code for this, because I think it's going to be very similar, basically. If current cast ability. Okay, we don't have a current cast ability. Well, let's see. Let's just deal with a delete case to start. So the delete case is basically my equipment manager. So I mean that's like super easy theoretically. So my character equipment manager, then character unit my character equipment manager dot what do we do? Call that thing again? Despawn ability objects. Yeah. Okay. So that should be okay. Let's just check that. Okay, so we go back over to wolf speed. Turn on his speed of the wolf, and then run over here to this goblin. Okay, let's see. And oh yeah, oh that's way better. Look at that. Okay, you know what? I don't even think we need to bother with the create case. Like I'm actually like happy sort of with the way the arrow just like pops into his hand right there. It's only in his hand for like 2 seconds longer. Actually, you know what? Maybe we can that. Yeah, you know what? Let's ramp it up. Let's just raise the bar on this for sure. So, how are we going to do that? If we have an animated ability, I feel like we need actually like a new switch here. On the animated abilities, we need like a new boolean that basically says like whether or not we're going to create the casting prefab with like just the like default or not. Um, the other thing is like, do we track the current animated ability? Because when we get that animation event, we actually need to know what animated ability we're running. So if we don't, we're going to have to build some logic in for that. So let's start with serialize field, and this will be a private bool, protected bool. What is it again? Protected bool, animator, create prefabs. Sure. Animator, create prefabs. So we're just going to make a note to ourselves that this means prefabs are created by the animator from an animation event, not from uh, not from the ability manager during cast start. Okay, so now we need a method basically to tell us whether or not our ability should do that. So, do you know what? Honestly, this can be done. This can be done in the base ability because, like, why not? Like, we have some casting animations that are timed casts, and I was thinking, like, there's a point in the crafting animation where the character like pulls out a saw and like whips it through his arm. But if we could delay the creation of that saw for like 2 or 3 seconds or half a second, it would look a lot better. He would basically put his arm into position and then the saw could pop into his hand at exactly the right moment. So I like that better. So this gets to be part of part of the base. Where are we here? So we have some prefabs, holdable object names. Yeah, okay. And we're just going to put it up there. Holdable object prefabs. Okay. So by default, yeah, it's going to be false. Okay. So then let's save those, and then we need to go into the character ability manager. And when we perform the ability cast, we create holdable objects right here. So basically what we need to do is if, do we know what cast we're performing? Ability. Okay. If ability dot, right, so we have to make property for that. So protected bool animator create prefabs, we will make a property, put that back to protected, and change the name to my animator create prefabs, and then we'll go up into the ability interface, go to the definition of that, add some prefab or the setting right there, and just remove that, get, and remove that, set, and now it's valid. Okay, and close that down, go back into our base ability. I gotta make it public, I think. Yeah, public. Okay, that into our character ability manager and .my animator create prefabs. Perfect. Then no, we want if not ability.my animator create prefabs. Okay. So I think we need a new variable. We can track the current cast. I think if we look at it, current cast ability. But we do not track animated abilities. Maybe in the character animator, because we clean up our animated attack here, right? We have waiting for animated ability. Is false. That's probably the closest thing right there. We have current ability, which is actually part of the animator, interestingly enough. Let's see everywhere we use that. I'm just a little bit curious about that. Let's find all references to that. Okay. So we do track the current animated ability. And let's see where we set it. Is it used only for animated abilities or any ability? Any ability it looks like. So let's find all references to that. So we set it in the special melee attack. We don't set in the casting ability. Okay, so this is a place that we actually do keep a reference to what our current ability is. Because basically what happens is when we receive this animation hit event, we need to know our current ability so that we can spawn its ability objects. And this handles that. Okay. So I think that'll be good. Okay, good. So we just need to ask the animator what is its current ability, and if we have it, then we spawn the objects. So let's go back into character ability manager. Let's see. We will spawn the objects here. Ability.my holdable object names. Okay, so this is yeah, right here. Okay. So let's see. I think this should be its own function, basically. And yeah, okay. So we'll make a new function for it, and this will be a public void spawn ability objects. then a base ability, base ability. And no, you know what? We don't even need to do that. We're actually going to get this inside. So basically, let's see here. We're going to do if my base character dot my animated unit. I think my animated unit dot my character animator dot my current ability does not equal null. Actually, you know what? Okay, first of all, if it equals null, we're just going to return. Nothing to do. Then also, since this could be potentially done in the current cast, I think we want to check that too. So and current cast ability equals null. This will cover the case of animated abilities and the other stuff. So then basically we want to figure out which one we're doing. So in fact, we'll do base ability used base ability. And we'll change this up a little bit here. So if that, then that, and that, and that. Okay. So what we want to do, let's see. If that does not equal null, then we are going to set the base ability, used base ability, and set the used base ability, and that will be the animated ability from the character animator. Good. And then if our used base ability is still null, then we're going to attempt to get it from current cast ability from our current ability manager. Oh, equals, yeah, of course. There. And use of unassigned local variable used base ability. Okay, I have to set it null first. Okay, that's good. So then I feel like this format is a little messed up here. So Control K, Control F. Good. Okay, that fixes it a little bit. And so now what we want to do basically is we want to check if the used base abilities my holdable object names.count does not equal 0, and if it is an ability that the animator is allowed to create the prefabs for, then we will spawn the objects. Okay, so now all we need to do is we just need to hook up the character animation event receiver to call this method. And that's on the animation prefab create. So we do animation prefab create, and it will be spawnability objects. Save that, go to the definition of that. This looks like the right code. Okay, so we should be able to now have that arrow spawn from his hand at the right time and despawn at the right time, theoretically, assuming we did everything right. Okay, jump into wolf speed, load it up. And let's go check. Okay, goblin coming up. Goblin's got an arrow. Let's go the arrow. Puts his hand. No. Okay. I think we forgot to set that on the shoot bow. So shoot bow, animated ability, check, animation create prefabs. That's a little better. Hit save. That should prevent them from being created at the start of that animation. So play, load game, and load up wolf speed. We're going to load him up, jump into the game, run over to our goblin. Okay, he shoots an arrow, arrow disappears, and boom! Oh yeah, oh my god, that's amazing. I love it. The arrow pops out the minute he puts his hand behind him. It's not coming like straight out of the quiver, but I don't really care. These are free animations and they're not supposed to line up. But it disappears. Oh man, it even looks like it's flying towards you. I couldn't be happier with that. Totally couldn't be happier with that. I think that's all I want to do for this episode. So we fixed up our goblin so that they have awesome arrow animations now, and our multi-phase boss AI properly works, and all of the units are working properly with their animated abilities again, as they should be, which sets us up so that I can start the next video very shortly, probably like within the hour or so. And that one is going to be making hunter pets for the Goblin Rangers. Our Goblin Rangers are going to learn how to summon and subjugate bunnies and call them into combat and keep them as pets, unlike the summon spell for the skeleton where he can just keep on summoning them. So, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then thumbs up the video, subscribe to the Cohesion YouTube channel, or just leave a note in the comments letting me know you liked it or what else you'd like to see. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.